I'd like unanimous consent to speak as if in morning business to the time I may consume, probably not longer than 20 or 25 minutes.
Without objection.
I hope the American people are watching Washington right now. We're really at a defining moment in our country. There's not anybody in this body that doesn't recognize that our country is on an unsustainable course. They know it. We all know it. The world knows it. We can argue about how we are to close, how close we are to a debt crisis and a liquidity crisis, but no one disputes that one is coming. We just don't know when. Yet in the next 2 weeks, Congress is going to make that problem $1 trillion worse. And we can say that a lot of what we're doing is the right thing to do. But what we're not doing is addressing the real issues that need to be accompanied by grown-ups as we look at this. What should the American people make of this? It's kind of like we're on the Titanic here in America and everybody says the bar's open, we'll just have a party the next 2 weeks. We're going to spend another $900 billion. Or we're going to set it up so that it can be spent. I don't often agree with a columnist by the name of Thomas Friedman, but he has a column today that I think everyone in our collective body should read. It's aptly titled, "Still Digging." Here he writes, "Given where we need to go, this tax deal, opportunity scholarship deal, unemployment deal, tax holiday deal is just another shot of morphine to a country that needs to do things that are big and hard and still only wants to do things that are easy and small." He concludes, economics is not war. It can be win-win. So it can be good for the world if China is doing better. But it can't be good for America if every time we come to a hard choice, we borrow more money from a country that is not just out saving and out hustling us, but is also starting to out-educate us. We need a plan. I couldn't agree with him more. I was part of the Deficit Commission, taking a lot of criticism for saying we needed to have that debate on the Senate floor. I still think we need to have that debate on the Senate floor. But this body won't even agree to about having a debate about having a plan. Last week, the members of the Debt Commission refused to even debate the plan. The members refused to even debate the plan in Congress. We didn't get 14 out of 18 votes. We only got 11. And I want to congratulate Senator Durbin and Senator Conrad and Senator Crapo and Senator Gregg for their efforts on that commission. You see, they think we need a plan. Senator Conrad had a wonderful statement about it. And he said this, the only thing that's worse than being for this plan is being against it. Because what he was really addressing, the fact is that we're not willing to make the hard choices. We won't come together and do what's best for America. What we'll do is just take another shot of morphine, drink another drink on the Titanic, and hope that somehow it gets better. The fact is we already have a debt commission. It's called the United States Congress. That's why I voted initially against the debt commission. I spent 8 months, had a full-time staffer working on that commission for the last 8 months. We are the debt commission. We have to have a plan to avert the catastrophe that is in front of us. America needs to know it's urgent. It's not something that can wait a year. We're going to have a major liquidity crisis, and we're also going to have a major interest rate crisis. The question is nobody knows when it comes. But the one thing we do know is that we don't have a plan. We will no longer control our ability to get out of our problem. The people who own our debt will control how we get out of our problem. So if, in fact, we want to hand over our responsibility in the Senate to the bondholders of the world, then we should continue not having a plan. But if, in fact, we want to embrace the oath that we were given, then we should have a plan. And as we debate over the next 2 weeks, coming up to Christmas, part of that debate has to be whether or not we're grown up enough to recognize the party's over and that we better start bailing water, we better form the line, the bucket brigade, otherwise we're going to go down with the ship. Now people can say, well, you're scaring people. That's realism. That's what's getting ready to happen to us. Mr. Bernanke cannot solve our problems in this regard. Only we can solve these problems for the American people. Cutting spending should be the easy part of our solution. We can document hundreds of billions of dollars a year that are either wasted, defrauded, or duplicative in the federal government. And I've given hundreds of speeches over the last 6 years outlining those things, whether it be the $5 billion the Pentagon paid to contractors for performance bonuses when those contractors didn't meet the performance requirements to get the bonus, or it's the $80 to $100 billion a year in fraud in Medicare and Medicaid. Those are facts. The fact that we pay 3 times as much for a motorized wheelchair than what it costs. We haven't done anything to address any of those issues. It is not hard to cut spending. It's hard to get the will to have a plan that recognizes that we have to keep on keeping on until we get America out of this very dangerous time period that we're experiencing. We just learned that we rank 25th in the world in math, 17th in science. Yet we have 105 different separate government programs to incentivize excellence in science, technology, education, engineering, and math. This is just a tiny little example of the work we need to do. We need to have one plan. It needs to have measurements on it. We need to oversight it. And then we need to look the next year, is it working? Is it effective? We have 105 sets of bureaucrats administering a high, and we haven't made the headway that we all know is required for us to be competitive in a global economy. Yet, not once this year, not once last year, not when Republicans were in control, not when Democrats are in control, do we do the effective oversight that's necessary to get us out of the jam we're in. Oversight is hard work. It's not easy. It requires that we actually have to know what's going on in the government, which is part of our oath to begin with. We have to do the work, we have to read it, we have to go to the attendance, we have to interview the people, we have to have investigators do so we know what is going on. And yet we do not do that. I often hear from my colleagues on the other side, we need to pay for the so-called Bush tax cuts, which are really your tax cuts. The assumption is that once the money comes to the government at a certain rate, it's always going to come, and it's not yours, it's the government's. Let's grant that premise for a minute. Let's grant the premise that it's the government's money, not the individual's. I'd issue this challenge. Anyone who thinks we ought to pay for tax cuts ought to have to put up a list of programs that we ought to eliminate to pay for them. I put up, every time when people are wanting to spend money, a list of options that we can do to make it where we don't increase the very problem hole that we keep digging in. The fact is the body isn't interested in cutting spending. And the proof is what we did last year. The very same people that claim we need to pay for the tax cuts uniformly voted to override pay-go to the tune of $266 billion last year, just in this last year. Not this whole Congress, just this last year. So the claims were called. So what we need to do is move away from that rhetoric. The problem is too big for us to take pot shots at each other on what we think is a political point. And we need to get down to the real business of having a plan that gets this country out of the very real difficulties that we face. And the very fact that we don't know when the problem's coming, the very fact that we can't control our own destiny unless we start taking action now, should give us all chills. That we are about to be the Senate, the Congress of the United States that allowed this to happen. We can't let that happen, no matter what our positions are. The only way we get out of the hole we're in is if we make shared sacrifices. And that means political sacrifices, that means position sacrifices, that means monetary sacrifices, that means sacrifices against our wish lists. It means we all have to sacrifice. Some people say it's suicide to tell the American people they have to sacrifice. I adamantly disagree with that. They're grown up. They get it way ahead of us. They've already seen what's happening to us. They're feeling it now. They have this innate sense that we are disconnected from the very real problems that they're seeing. They're ready to do their part. I'll borrow a line from someone far more eloquent. It was JFK. I remember, I was in high school. Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. It was a great statement then. It is more appropriate now than ever. And what does the shared sacrifice mean? It means if you live in this country and make a decent income, you need to be more responsible with your health care and retirement than you are today. If you've gained the system to get disability benefits or workman's compensation, sorry, your free ride's over. If you're receiving a special tax break because you have a good lobbyist, you're going to have to give that up. If you're a defense contractor, you might only get a bonus for doing exceptional work, not standard work, not for just showing up for work. And if you're a politician, it might mean you have to lose an election to do what's the best for this country. If we think about what is required and how we would achieve real change, we have two truths in tension. One, we have the government we tolerate. Two, the American people have the power to change that government. We can solve all the difficult challenges before us, but we can't solve them if Washington won't even debate the problem. And if we can't overcome our courage deficit, the American people have a responsibility to replace us all, to replace every one of us. You know, courage is having the fortitude to do the right thing for the right moral reason at the right time, regardless of the consequences to you. And we lack that in our body politic today. I know a lot of people see